Hello, and welcome to an adventure like no other. Far more than what you have known, there is something far more to be known than you can ever know. And it is all about you, the real you, your real awareness with your intuitive senses. You were never taught that the real you, your real awareness, is operating 5 bodies in cause and effect, restricting creation. You have been taught to think that you are only a one-dimensional human person, with a mind and emotions, and with a very short lifespan on this planet Earth. More than what your mind can grasp is your intuitive senses that can be opened to see beyond all your restrictions. You have always had an opening to see beyond what you have known, and this has been purposely kept from you, and this is where you have heard rumors and stories about your nightly dreams. Your so-called dreams is your opening to your intuitive senses that will allow you, the personal you, to excel beyond what you have previously known. Everyone has intuitive senses, and very few people take advantage of what is possible by recognizing something more than their mind can understand. Creation has its place for all of us, and then there is all life, which is far more than anything than what can become with creation. Everything we experience is necessary for us to survive with whatever we choose and decide our life to be. New Kevin Smith is the great witness to something more than what can be taught and learned in any school. It can be so that when anyone first listens to Kevin's intuitive side experiences, also known as real side experiences, from what their personal mind has known, Kevin's manner of expression will at first be rather different to comprehend. This is where this introduction and reading the new books and Facebook groups will help. Have fun deciding. DUANE the Great Writer and Seer.
In this real side experience, I would find myself in one of the most expansive structures I ever have encountered other dimensionally. The only other buildings of a similar scale would be the extensive universal universities, where real education and all is pertaining reference sharing is a constant, as managed and overseen by the real guides. The size and numbers of the universities required to cater for the ever-growing in volume of individuals and body types, stepping up and deciding to become more aware throughout multi-dimensional creation at this moment. This enormous structure overall served as a central position from which transportation was available to all multi-dimensional areas of creation seemingly. It was, by all intents and purposes, a real side and extremely large airport of a kind. I would be traversing through it. The predominant body form present appeared to be human, as though this were another dimensional transportation system specifically designed for the human species. Impressions suggested the entirety of the human race would be represented here, that all humans were present within this airport on the real side. As the human race currently stands, the majority of which still are personal self-consciousness and creationally immersed and locked into, with but a handful, a scattering of notable exceptions, that despite then the greater proportion of humanity being one-dimensionally operating and oblivious of what is taking place on the real side, multi-dimensionally in creation, and in regards to their consciousness construct of ideas, they are maintained as the constant unconscious effects of, all humanity still had a placement here in this vast real side airport, and where potentially could they traverse anywhere throughout creation. In reality, as we are all this isness, everything awareness, we are everything and therefore everywhere already, but according to our own decided limitations and restrictions, dictates what of the everything we actually are accessing and experiencing, our position in relation to life. Humans overwhelmingly being physical and astral level based, through the limitations and idea restrictions they self-impose, but potentially with adjustment, with releasing of that which limits our positioning with life, so we gradually open up to the full reality of our real awareness, true being selves. We afford ourselves full creational access, and beyond that, into the endlessness of the years, as we elect to proceed with the recognizing of the true reality we, our real awareness, is a part of. As such, any created means of dimensional traversing isn't necessary. The real awareness, as a part of this isness everything that animates through all consciousness affected dimension and simulated position, as we open up to this true reality of ourselves, we can be afforded the view and experience of anything taking place in the simulators, as after all, everything creational is an extension of ourselves, of this isness everything, as formulated through a decision, choice, and experienced in isolation of the everything is, through the creational mechanics. But here, such a means of multi-dimensional accessing had seemingly been constructed specifically to cater for humanity, and maybe suggesting then a preparation for the moment when humanity may elect to, as a species, become more aware. As many an experience shared by myself and others, in conjunction with the constant operation of human consciousness adjustment and restructuring, is affording the potentiality of this, as though this vast airport, symbolizing that if this moment becomes so, that of humanity as a species becoming more aware and setting intent with the all is, so humanity allows themselves to become multi-dimensional. Maybe then not literally an airport, but more symbolic, and indeed impressions were of the mode of transport being by way of standard human in design commercial planes, evidently such would not be exactly space-worthy. It was as though I was set to experience a plane flight from this vast airport for myself, what was in reality a created mechanism of multi-dimensional transportation that impression suggested was by the hands of real guides for humanity's benefit. I had a certain time window prior to my needing to board my plane, a window that seemed to extend for several days, and this period of time was surely required that I could explore the entirety of the airport. And at a certain moment I would exit the airport, and my exploration take me beyond its confines. That although the airport, literally or symbolic as it may have been, was by the hand of the real guides, it was overall positioned in a rather uninspiring area of creation. But then, in actuality, the entirety of creation is somewhat dismal as things currently stand. The distortion that overall consciousness has become, affecting the simulator's multi-dimensional layout in equally as distorted terms as the simulator is the consciousness affected. And there is nowhere one can actually go in creation at this moment that doesn't afford indication of the simulator being somewhat advanced in the extent of its deterioration. Practically every dimension of it, if seen as it actually is very dark and oppressive. And this airport would be another guide-created construct then, planted amidst the dismal overall backdrop that is creation. But just like it is with the universal universities, access to this airport could only be granted if the guides allowed. In this case, only humanity had permission to be operating within it, as unconscious as the vast majority of humanity may currently be, and oblivious that they are even afforded such a position other-dimensionally. No other species were permitted access, be they ill-intended or benevolently inclined, as though this were an operation strictly for humanity's benefit, and so this did present as a safe haven for all of humanity. And perhaps this is the idea, that the extent of the ill-intended dark force bombardment other-dimensionally, the attacks, the abuse, the intimidation of humanity, although maybe not consciously realized by humans, still will be subconsciously placed as idea experience, with the subsequent effect, overall, that of a fear-inducing, can be diminished then, as though a guide afforded real-side protection for the human species at this moment, maybe as a preparation for events to come in regards to humanity, the alien armada, and so forth. For indeed, beyond the confines of the safe haven humanity airport, would I find a DUANE and a number of other beings that impressions revealed had extensive levels of awareness, and they would be in a discussion regarding humanity, involved with the guides in regards to this airport creation. The surrounding area, very uninviting, as I said, as every dimension of creation currently and generally is, would be teeming with monstrous creatures and body forms, all clamouring around the airport's exterior as though systematically testing for weaknesses and entry points, though none could they find. The protection that the vast airport afforded was absolute, it was impregnable. In one direction would be a series of barren mountains, though the route to them would comprise of impassable swamps, and semi-submerged within the swamp waters and mud would be large reptilian monstrosities, resembling four-legged lizards, though of a twisted design. I had the impression that it would be necessary at some stage to reach the very mountains, as featuring beyond the swamp lands, with the expected resistance the lizard creatures would present as, for whatever purpose I had for doing so. And indeed, as I took but a step in that direction, so the beady eyes of every lizard creature would be locked upon me, as though they were readying themselves to engage me aggressively should I proceed. As I said, it wasn't the moment as yet where I would need to travel the mountains beyond, and as I watched on, I would observe an individual that, although appeared human, wouldn't be classified as being precisely of the species, and where he was denied automatic access to the vast airport therefore, but had seemingly determined means by which he could access a certain of the dimensional areas the airport afforded. Impressions revealed that the airport not only was a safe haven, but that potentially, should humanity become more aware as a species, they will be provided certain dimensional positions that the airport connects them to. But these destination points, whatever purpose they may serve, unlike the airport, could be accessed by others, but not directly, as though these certain dimensions the airport connected to would not simply be a case of walking through the door, but as though sneaking in via an underground tunnel as an analogy, that through a consciousness idea, design, and decision effected were these dimensional positions, but which were not directly accessible other than by unconventional means, as though the dimensions were as long forgotten as the mechanism by which they are accessed. But for this individual, who had seemingly found a means. He seemed to have established a contact with a very dubious character that looked just as demons are typically depicted, scaled, horned, etc., and this ancient and powerful demon had the ability and know-how to access these long-forgotten dimensions, and had struck a bargain or other with the human in appearance man, where he would grant him access. Visually this presented as the demon embracing the humanoid man, and jumping into the muddy, swampy grounds with him, both vanishing beneath the surface, and impressions revealing both would re-emerge within some of the dimensions that the airport connected in with. Whatever the intentions of the individual was unclear, why he desired to access dimensions that potentially all of humanity may be venturing into at some stage, but the demon himself had no interest in humanity's affairs, and undoubtedly the guides are aware of this anyway, as this is, after all, their created humanity-benefiting operation. As I said, overall indicating that should humanity proceed to step up as a species, protection becomes available automatically, as they release that which presents as the potentiality of harm and duress, the idea agreements in relation to the ill-intended that become released accordingly as a part of the awareness process, this airport position being but one example of this, and where humanity affords themselves greater creational access, including the curious, long-forgotten dimensions, and whatever purpose such serves, and will provide for them. Perhaps more may be revealed at a later moment, but for now, the scene would switch. I have mentioned on a number of previously shared real-side experiences that there is an ongoing effort to exact alteration to the consciousness of those agreeable, where effected are more robust and resilient body forms, not just real-side, and where the real awareness generally can make whatever adjustments to the simulation inserted body forms it desires, to deal and handle every eventuality, but more so that these alterations manifest as resiliency where our physical level body forms are concerned, that we are less susceptible to external stressors, be they environmental or the ill-intended body forms of others. For indeed, as we continue to release the ideas of consciousness, which present as a limitation and restriction, we are unlocking our ability to operate in increasing levels of limitlessness. For absent of any ideas I hold to, I can be the effects of nothing unless I consciously choose this to be. I am no longer resigned to any limitation as dictated through a consciousness, in regards to my body type in relation to my environment. That this then is automatic, increasing limitlessness as we proceed with our awareness process, but seems I and others are involved with the various real side operations in relation to this idea, that of improving survivability on the physical level, and which on occasion takes a technological form, the application of advanced science in various ways. An example of which I shared recently, where an advanced female scientist was putting myself and a group through a technological body form enhancing procedure. That although what led to the moment where this next scene opened up wasn't revealed, it must have been a similar technology-orientated procedure in regards to body form altering that potentially may become physical level manifested. For I had a kind of contraption attached to the left side of my face, around the ear specifically, and impressions revealed it was serving a beneficial purpose along the lines I have just revealed. However, for the procedure to be completed, I had to traverse a series of streets and reach a particular point for the technology to be activated. Presenting as resistance to my objective would be a group of vampires that for whatever reason were adamantly opposed to this operation. The vampire being a particular body type as effected from a consciousness, where extensive lifespans are typical, where the consumption of blood generally is the case with most, and the vampires are usually in collusion and association with the darker forces, another arm and expression of the simulator controllers. The vampires vary in their appearances and indeed abilities. These particular ones would be sporting the sharp elongated fangs, and their eyes would be utterly black and devoid of any other colour. I have had some dealings with vampires over the years, and recently also, where but a few weeks ago I rather riled them up again, so to speak, as I attempted to afford certain of them the opportunity of the all-ears, where I was met with a failure and drew their aggressive attentions instead. And perhaps this was the reason for their decided interference in this real side experience. Nothing other than the desire to continue to be derisive and antagonistic at every given opportunity. For as we engage with the ideas, including those that are the body forms and consciousnesses of others, we rather do take on the effects of doing so, and where, as we deal with the ill-intended and unaware, we can expect to be the recipient of their aggressive attentions. The objective seemed to be to reach my intended destination, where my technology contraption attached to my head would become active, while preventing the vampires from laying their hands on me, which would in some way sabotage the operation. It seemed these particular vampires were a tenacious bunch, and they would be successful in preventing my reaching my destination, that although they would bestow no harm upon me, they had prevented my ability to reach the technology activation point, much to their delight, and the scene would conclude there. Although, if imperative is it for the completion of this curious objective, just a case then of rearranging the ideas and agreements that had effected as its failure. For as is the case, no other individual can impact my experience adversely, absent of my agreement that they can. Evidently then, a little agreement clearing is required, should I wish to be beyond the ability of these particular vampires to interfere with my operations.